Hi everyone, it's Ileana and I wanted to share this card I made. It's a card that I made for my daughter. When I went to Texas for the Understand Blue retreat, she decided to stay behind with her grandparents and I made this card to send to her. Unfortunately, she headed back before she even received the card, so it's actually still in Texas. I'm going to be using an unmounted stamp from the Purple Onion Designs. It's called The Perfect Spot. And I'll talk to you a little bit about how I got it to stick to the lid. What I'm doing right now is I'm stamping a partial image onto an imaging sheet so that I could place the mama bear onto into the scene so I could mask it off. And I'm going to be using two Misties today, and I'm sorry about that, but it's just convenient to do it this way just for the demonstration that I'm doing today. And I placed the mama bear where I want it to be, and I picked it up with the lid. And I cut out a different foam insert just from some 2mm fun foam that I got at the hobby store. And the reason why I'm doing that is because the mama bear stamp set is a little bit thicker and it doesn't fit with the insert that comes with the Misti. It's just a little bit thicker. That foam is 3mm. And so I'm stamping the mama bear first onto the watercolor paper. And then once I get the two of them onto the card, onto the watercolor paper, I'm going to switch back to the other Misti that has the background stamp. I am going to go ahead and ink it up with archival ink since I'm going to be doing watercoloring, and I almost forgot to put the mask on the bear, and I'd already pre-cut this. So now I'm going to be stamping the background, and the way that I got the stamp to stick to the lid, I had originally mounted it onto the Easy Mount foam, but it was a little too thick to fit in the Misti, and so I just pulled it off, and there was still some adhesive left on the stamp, and there was just enough to get it to stick to the lid. At the end of the video, I show you how I just pull it off and just clean the lid really well to get off any adhesive residue. So I've stamped my image, and I want to go back, and since it's textured watercolor paper, I go back and restamp the image until I get a good coverage over the whole thing. And once I'm done, I will start to watercolor. I will be using my Inktense pencils as well as my Gonzai watercolors for this project. I created this chart so that I knew how each color in the Inktense pencils, how each color would look after you add the water to it, because they are very bold. I will add it to my website in the download section, so it will be available to anyone that would like to download it. I just printed it onto a piece of watercolor paper, and I'm just going to be coloring my images with the different pencils, and so I'll speed through this part. Okay, so here's my disclaimer. I have no earthly idea how to watercolor, and I just jumped right in. I am by no means an expert in any way, and I'm pretty sure the really awesome watercolor people out there are just cringing at my technique. So I am learning as I go here. And I used a blue in this small little area, and I did not like how intense it was, and so I just added water and I just blotted it up until I was happy with the color I got. And then instead of coloring directly onto the paper, I'm just going to take my brush, and I am probably using a brush that's way too small for the area, but I just, like I said, I'm learning as I go. Now I'm coloring the grass, and the grass is a little difficult to color in all the different areas, and it's starting to look a little too, I'm not sure how to explain it. It's just looks too flat, and so I just decide to let it dry for a while before I go back and add color. And I want the tree to be a little bit different than the grass, and so I pulled out my Gonzai watercolors, and I just got these not too long ago, and this is the real first time I've ever used them. I did play with the shade of green to make sure that it was the shade that I wanted. I'm coloring the tree with a shade of brown, and then I go back and add a darker brown that's in the set, and I just blend those colors together, and I was really happy with the color brown that I got in the tree trunk. Like I said, I'm by no means an expert, but it was a little fun. It was a little stressful to make this card because I had no control over the outcome of the watercolors. And I wanted to add a little punch of color since it was such a traditional scene. And yeah, traditional scene with a mama bear holding a baby bear. So I added some purple bushes. I fussed with this card so much, I just trimmed out all of the fussy parts because the video was extremely long, and I didn't want to bore you with my OCD watercoloring technique. There's nothing revolutionary about how I painted this watercolor scene. It's just trying something new and using the supplies that I'd purchased. And finally, when I do get it done, I let it dry. You didn't see the part where I went back and added more colors and adjusted some stuff the way that it dried. So here we are, and what I would like to do is I want to go back and emboss everything that I stamped, and so I just wanted to make sure that everything was dry. And I wanted to also double check that by adding water to the watercolor paper that the paper didn't shrink. So I just put my little imaging sheet on top just to make sure that the lines were where they are. And then it was going to stay up in the same spot. And I'm using Versamark. I probably could have gone back and used VersaFine, but for some reason I decided just to use the Versamark, and I'll be using just clear embossing powder. Now I'm going back and adding the mama bear, and I'll be putting clear embossing powder over the whole image and heat setting everything. I was very pleased with how flat the panel turned out, and I was worried about a lot of warping, but it turned out pretty good. Now I'm using the same stamp set that the mama bear came out of, and it's by Mama Elephant, and it's called Bear Hugs, to add the sentiment. And the sentiment says, "Words can never describe just how much I love you." Now I'm just taking a clean brush with some water on it and removing some of the green paint so that you could read the sentiment in the corner. So I'm just also heat embossing the words. I've had a lot of questions about what I use to clean my stamps. Now I've been using a small square of the absorber. It is a product that you use to dry your car. I just cut it up into a few squares and use that now. For the card front to the card base, I'm going to add a generous amount of adhesive to the back so that it lays perfectly flat. I'm going to take the card base and put the fold side towards the corner, and I'm just going to use the Misti to position the panel to the front. I decided to add the other image of the mama bear and the baby bear to the inside of the card. I just thought that she would like to see those in there. And I will be watercoloring those two. And for some reason my stamp wouldn't stamp in the corner, and so I just added some paper to shim it together. And I'm using the Ganzai watercolors, and I did cut out the part on the front of the card. I went back and added some of this color from the Ganzai onto the front of the card, and I'm just creating just a ground for them to be walking on. And then I'm going to be stamping the sentiment, and it's from the Avery L set. It's called Handwritten Notes, and I reach for that quite a bit. So here I am. I'm just using my fingertip to remove any residue that's on the lid, and I'm using the Novus one to clean off anything that's left. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm sorry that I'm not an expert in watercoloring, but I thought I'd give it a go, and I'll probably try a little bit more later on. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and head on over to my website. Have a great day.